Hello and welcome to Face Off here on France 24, your weekly taste of French politics. The question this week is whether the ruling coalition is on the verge of implosion. The Socialists and the Greens are going through very rocky times because of a simmering disagreement over an airport project that boiled over last weekend. After a protest against the airport backed by the Greens turned violent, the Socialist Prime Minister himself warn his allies to take a clear stance. Are you with us or are you against us? Also this week, the French Parliament will vote to authorize the French military intervention in the Central African Republic to continue amid concerns of a quagmire and maybe that François Hollande is taking a major gamble. With me on the set, Philippe Turle from Radio France Internationale and Jean-Marc Gonin with the Figaro magazine. So last weekend, what was supposed to be a peaceful march against the building of a local airport in the city of Nantes in western France turned ugly.
Nantes is usually a quiet provincial city, but on Saturday, clashes erupted in its business quarter. About 1,000 violent demonstrators confronted police, throwing stones, damaging stores, and setting property on fire.
It's disgraceful that this protest turned into a violent urban guerrilla clash. The organizers lost all control of it.
The protest started peacefully. About 20,000 people, mostly environmental activists, demonstrated against a plan to build a new airport outside the city. To demonstrators, the existing airport is enough.
The government thought we'd lost motivation, but we haven't, and it should back out of this project.
At least one member of the government is on their side, Green Party Minister Cécile Duflot. Two other Green leaders were in the crowd, criticizing Prime Minister Marc Perelman for holding on to the project, even though a majority of the French are opposed to it.
Jean-Marc Perelman should now drop the plan for good. Is he capable of doing it, or should the president do it?
Protesters say they plan to keep fighting against the government's project.
The Prime Minister Jean-Marc Perelman after that called on the Greens to come clean and get out of the ambiguity, quote unquote. Now, both the Socialists and the Greens are saying, okay, we disagree, we agree to disagree. However, can this last? I mean, they've been together in this government for some time. There have been crises before, but is this maybe too much?
I think it will last for another 2 or 3 months. We are facing two types of elections in the coming weeks. That is municipal elections, town councils, etc., and then the European ballot. And then things will be clearer. First of all, the Greens will know exactly how much they weigh in the political landscape. And the Socialists will also know what kind of partners they are, the strengths of their partners and how they can give them more space or less. And that very topic of the airport in Nantes is not the main one. The fight will be coming probably in the fall with the new energy law. That is, it's called the energy transition law, where the Greens are expecting gestures, are expecting significant moves from the president, who, I remind this, has promised during his campaign that by 2025, nuclear energy will be only providing half of the French power, whereas now it's 3/4. So it's a big political move, and the Greens have drawn a red line there. If the president doesn't deliver, we won't stay.
Do you believe, because, I mean, this is a dispute that's been going on, whether to have an airport or not, but do you agree with Jean-Marc that the real test will be this major law that François Hollande promised, because the Greens have already suffered many defeats on a variety of taxes, on the protection of the environment, and do you think that if the government doesn't satisfy, then they will just leave?
Well, either they'll leave or they will be kicked out of the coalition. There are two possible ways.
Because some socialists are saying they're fed up with the Greens.
If you look at what's been happening, there are two Green ministers in the government at the moment. There's Cécile Duflot and there's Pascal Canfin. And Cécile Duflot has been sort of throwing hand grenades from time to time that explode and cause a scandal against what the government is saying. She's saying she's not in agreement with it. And then she'll run for cover. And then she'll let another one off. And then she'll run for cover. And she's creating for herself an image that she wants to take forward afterwards to take over the Green movement and become the leader of the Greens. That's her policy. So she's using her position as a government minister to do that. And many people are saying, well, what are these Greens doing in the government anyway? Why doesn't the Prime Minister throw them out? And this weekend in Le Monde, the newspaper, Cécile Duflot said she was fully in agreement with the protest against the airport in Nantes. Nantes is the former city of which the Prime Minister, Jean-Marc Ayrault, was the mayor. And the government is in favour of this airport. And people are saying, well, if you're a government minister and you're against what the government is doing, what are you doing in that government? Go into the opposition. But for the Greens, I think they think they're more useful if they stay in the government because they can speak out, make a nuisance of themselves than if they're not in the government. And if they were to leave the government, then the socialists feel that they could cause more trouble outside and they need them to win as many town councils as they can in the upcoming elections, the upcoming municipal elections in France. So they're trying to live together an happy married couple arguing all the time, living in the same house, sleeping in the same bed, but they don't get on.
But isn't the real question about François Hollande's stance? I mean, he announced during his campaign probably to garner some votes and build this alliance. You know, he gave some red meat to the Greens, or some green meat maybe. But deep in his heart, does he have any pro-environment feelings, or is he an old-type socialist who's in favor of the industry, nuclear energy, and so on? This is the question that all the Greens must be asking themselves.
This is the question. I think you make a point there, Marc. He's an old-style socialist, and he has become even more so since his U-turn in last January, when he decided to be pro-business, pro-industry. So energy questions, all these things won't be hampered by environment subjects. So now he has a clear line there, and the Greens have no space for that. There is no space for them. And I don't think Hollande will put his new policy at risk by taking harsh measures about nuclear power is a good example. I don't think he can give in now. So he will. There are 2 points. There are the diminishing the part of nuclear energy in the French total production, and there's also one issue that is very, very sensitive. It's the closure. It's the stopping of a nuclear plant on the German border on the Rhine in Fessenheim, and this is also a very tough issue. And I don't think the socialists will shut it down.
Okay. The problem is that while François Hollande is letting this happen, people are accusing the government of dithering, not being able to make a decision. François Hollande of weak leadership because people in his government are fighting within themselves and saying, well, this is a present for the opposition to criticise the government for not being able to follow one policy. But if he does close down Fessenheim, he's under pressure because people are going to lose their jobs. 2,500 people work there. What are they going to do afterwards? So it can't be that easy. So the Greens are pressuring him from one side, the local authorities from the other. He's in the middle, and really, we don't really know what's going on.
We'll see soon. Very quickly, second issue, Central African Republic. French troops were increased recently from 1,600 to 2,000. The parliament is authorizing this week the mission to continue. There are many questions. Is this mission creep, maybe a quagmire? Is Hollande taking a risk?
He is indeed. When you read the last statements of the provisional president, she said the French have to stay on until 2015. That is 1 more year, and it's a very long time in a very tricky situation. I think basically France came hastily there. Well, there was a need because massacres were looming everywhere. But on the other hand, the French army came to this country without noticing that it has changed a lot in the last decade, and the old schemes are not really working. I don't think the military was very well prepared for what they have discovered, the kind of militias they are dealing with, and they are not enough. Ban Ki-moon is speaking of 10,000 people needed. That's first thing. And the second thing is France cannot cope with the financial amounts needed to keep up the reinforcements. So it has to be internationalized, and there's difficulty to find help there.
Right. Philippe told Parliament supports this mission, but clearly there are doubts maybe that France is maybe overextending, its welcome there, that it was too confident after what's called a success in Mali. Maybe
they went in after the success early last year of what happened in Mali, and that was a totally different situation where they were chasing away Islamists who were coming towards the capital. Here, it's infighting within the country that's been going on for a long time, so the situation is completely different. What might happen, and what I think people in France are fearing may happen, is that the French may be finding themselves in an Iraqi type situation where there's no easy way out of it, and they're totally overwhelmed by the size of the task which they have been sent in to deal with. They were sent in to be peacekeepers. They're really acting as police there to try to separate the warring factions, and there are not the means to take over the whole country. They can last a bit in Bangui. The west of the country is totally anarchic. There are massacres taking place all over the place. So it's very difficult to know how the French are going to cope with that. And other countries in Europe don't want to get involved, to be quite honest. They're quite pleased the French are doing it. The United States are pleased the French are doing it because they don't want to go in there either. The European Union are supposed to be sending extra troops. It's slow coming in. And the Africans are sending troops. They're not enough to obviously control the situation. So it's very complicated. And now they're there. There's no easy way out. They just can't pull out.
Okay, we'll have to see how the situation evolves in the Central African Republic and how the Greens and the Socialists are going to decide whether they stay happily or unhappily married or they decide to divorce. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week here on France 24.